My dudes, so good to see you. Today is going to be a day. So excited for this. If you are a guest with us this morning, today is Vision Sunday, and we are going to be able to give you a really good flavor of what Rehope Southside has been about since we planted and what God is calling us to for this next season and into the future. If you are kind of thinking about trying to find a church, you'll get the lay of the land today. Speaking of guests, we have a few highly esteemed recurring guests. Beth is back with us. So good to see you. We got Versace, who is not listening to me. Alex, so good to see you. And also the Black Isle Young Farmers Club are here. So good to see you, my dudes. What a treat. What a treat. It is Vision Sunday, and we are going to take a look at what God is directing us towards, and really what he has been directing us towards for all of 2026 so far. In January, at our Vision Sunday, we talked about his call for us to dream big, and that was raising our expectations of what God can do for us through higher faith, seeing faith as our lifeblood, and we set out to get our blood pumping. And today we're going to be thinking about taking that to the next level. But before we get into that, allow me to bless you real quick. I bless you in the name of Jesus to know Jesus even more wonderfully today. May God bless you and keep you. May he look graciously on you. May he show you his favor and give you his peace. In the name of Jesus. Good times. So we're going to start with some organized data, and I'm going to tell you the story of Rehope Southside so far. It's graphs time, my friends. I know you're excited. Organized data is beautiful data. So here is our attendance records from 2019. And as you can see, Rehope Southside was a rocket from week one, but these first 2 months that are highlighted stand out. This was when our West End location was getting a little bit of refurb work done, and the West End joined us. And that kind of skews the data a little bit and makes it look like we were in decline from the jump, which was definitely not the case. So I'm going to leave those months out so that 2019 looks like this. And you can see like 80 to 100 people from the start is an absolute madness for a new church. Anybody here have been around since the early days in 2019? Yo, my dudes, let's rip. We love that. Last time I read 1 Corinthians 4 Bible read through, this verse stood out. It says, according to God's grace that was given to me, I have laid the foundations as a skilled master builder, and another builds on it. And when I read it, I immediately thought of Ruth Weller and translated the verse in my mind to read as it does on the screen. Ruth was the lead pastor of Rehope Southside when it planted. Ruth is an absolute weapon, bro. So good. She laid the foundations and more, it must be said, as a skilled master builder. And here's how I know that she built this church up strong. Because when we look at the data from 2020, we can see that lockdown moment that's highlighted, and then our attendance dipped. And comparing 2020 to 2019, we can see that dip. But like, that's 2020. Do you know what I mean? Like, comparing any year to 2020 is not really fair. But what we can see from 2021 is that things jumped straight back up. Maybe not exactly straight back up to 2019 standards, but not far off. And the trend line there is pretty exciting. People jumping straight back into church speaks to the value for community, the value for care, the value for support, the value for helping people find their spot in church that Ruth built into Rehope's DNA. Masterful building, by the way. And we have never lost that. Thank you, Ruth. 2022 is kind of more of the same. And by that point, Jamie and I were lead pastors. Jamie was lead pastor for 2022. And we kept going with that like Ruth Wellery thing, reaping the fruit that she had planted and like continuing to build up so that in September, we hit the dizzying heights of 2019. And you will notice highlighted in that little section is where we don't have any attendance data for 2022. And that's when Lindy stepped down as our ministry administrator, and we hadn't hired Riley yet, and Jamie and I forgot to collect any data. And given that this is Riley's last Sunday on staff at Rehope Southside, I'm hoping not to repeat that mistake again. Pray for me. But one thing we do know is that 2022 was going in the right direction. But it was 2023 where we saw significant change. 2023 was the 2020 that Rehope Southside would have had were it not for that year being what it was. The first year of a new church, is all about momentum. 2019 had momentum in droves, but 2020 kind of robbed it from us. But in 2023, it felt like we had fully recaptured our momentum, fully recaptured our mission. We were fully ourselves again. And that carried into 2024, and that trend line is exciting. And we've talked a lot around here about Rehope Southside being an elephant church, big, strong, stable, nurturing, caring church. And we bulked up in 2024 for sure. And 2025, kept that momentum going. But you can see here that the trend line is a lot shallower. And then pushing through into this year, and then, that trend line is one that I don't really like to see so much. Maybe a quieter summer. Summer is always quieter. Maybe that's skewing the data. But I think it's kind of safe to say that we have lost some momentum. And I mean some. There are many areas of the church that are thriving. And attendance figures are who cares? Yet they can be useful, because they can help us to diagnose some issues. They can help me to think through which areas may have lost some momentum and why. Here's what our church's attendance looks like over Rehope Southside's lifespan. And this is good. So we're not freaking out, far from it. But you'll notice from this chart that we have never had a month where the average was above 200 people. And this is our goal for the next season. And moving into the future, we want to break the 200 barrier. And we don't want to do that to hit an attendance statistic and then think, oh, good, look at us, we did it, and pat ourselves on the back, because care is still the real goal. Staying still is going backwards. And in hindsight, perhaps there are some things that we're going to talk about today that maybe would have been better talked about in 2025, yet here we are in another moment like that 2021, 2023 period where we need to recapture some of our momentum. Here's how we're going to do that. Since spring, Rehope's lead pastors have been reviewing each location so that we can see which areas we want to build a little bit more strength back into and how we can do that. And we've been using a resource by Dr. Ed Stetzer. I keep wanting to call him Seltzer, but I'm just going to call him Dr. Ed. And here's what Dr. Ed has to say about the 200 barrier. It says the 200 barrier represents a leadership and organizational transition point. Back one for me, Ashley. Churches at this stage, I gave Ashley 54 slides. My bad, homie. The 200 barrier represents a leadership and organizational transition point. Churches at this stage typically have momentum, but begin to experience strain in leadership capacity. That includes volunteers, communication clarity, and structural alignment. The goal is not simply or at all numerical growth, but leadership, scalability, and organizational strength. And that sounds about right for us, because we have got momentum, but we're facing some challenges like the ones on the screen. And I think these are in order of how much we experience them. First of all, leadership bottlenecks forming around one or two individuals. I am the problem. Volunteer systems under strain. Communication becoming unclear or inconsistent. Ministry silos developing across teams, and culture beginning to drift across ministries. Now, the leadership bottleneck challenge is one that, in my opinion, is causing all of the other challenges to exist. I am the bottleneck. I am the problem here. At least our current systems have kind of put me into that role where all the decisions kind of get filtered through me, and it slows stuff down. And it's not just only my voice that counts around here, but it looks like I kind of have the rubber stamp for things, and it's a bottleneck. But the solution of this is easy. We have so many leaders around here, and it's time to let them cook. It's time for me to let you cook. Now, I don't think that we are the center of the Rehope universe by any stretch of the imagination, but I can see how God has been working in this church as a whole to prepare us for the shifts that we need to make so that we can move into our next phase. This year, we have gone through the book of James, and we have seen and talked so much about high faith, high expectations, and practical faith. And that feels so in line with our dream big stuff. And then we've explored our spiritual gifts, so we're better placed and better informed to know in which areas we think and we know and we're confident that we can bear more fruit. So I'm grateful for Brian and his leadership and his teaching and direction this year, and I'm grateful to God for how he has been preparing us. I feel really set up for this moment, and I hope you can do too. I could understand that volunteer systems being under strain. Like, I could understand that being the challenge that is felt most acutely by most people. We are a busy, active, alive church. Like, we call people to a lot. And there are a bunch of our ministries that are in really good places, and that there are others that could do with a little bit of strengthening. Welcome and Hospitality would love a boost. And we're trying to create a separate communion team so that the Welcome Hospitality team can focus on their preparation before our services start, and the communion team can do their thing. But it is our kids' teams where the biggest needs lie. And part of the challenge of recruiting for kids is that y'all walk in here and someone welcomes you and you worship and you see people praying for other people. People are praying for you. Everything that happens in this room, you see it and you experience it. And that allows you to think, hey, I would like to get in on that goodness too. But you don't get to see or experience the goodness of Church for Kids. So naturally flowing out of that, you don't get to think, I would like to get in on this too. Brooke, grateful for your share today. She's also not listening. And we love those little moments where we get to see the goodness of kids ministry and Church for Kids breaking into this room. I love that, Brooke. Thank you so much. And homie, when we don't get to see Church for Kids, it's not just a dagger. I kind of think it's a bit of a tragedy. I just spent a week with those dudes at Holiday Club, and I do like to be hyperbolic, but I love it when hyperbole and honesty align. Those dudes are solid gold. I had such a great week. I had the best time, but I'm less concerned about me. My main deals are the kids volunteers having the best time, that counts, and the kids having the best time, not just at Holiday Club, but also at church. A few months ago, I saw the results of 2 independent surveys. They both had similar results, and the surveys found a really strong correlation between remaining faithful to Jesus throughout adult life and someone's experience of church between the years of 5 and 17 years old. And with a negative experience of church, a dude is only 30% likely to remain faithful to Jesus as an adult. And this survey defined negative as confusing, boring, judgmental. But for us, I would add, just a bit of inconsistency. We don't have leaders for Crescendo right now. And over the summer, Lady Bex has been here leading Crescendo. She has been amazing. We're so grateful for her. But she leaves for Portland on Wednesday. And then we're going to need to start figuring it out again. And especially for kids, especially for those little dudes, consistency really matters. And I heard some feedback this summer, and I'm really grateful for the person who passed it on, that they could trust me enough to pass on this feedback, which probably wasn't easy to give. It wasn't particularly easy to hear, but I appreciate their trust, and I think their feedback is completely fair enough. And they told me that sometimes they feel nervous about coming to pre-service prayer because quite often they get asked to jump in on the creche or Crescendo teams last minute and then they miss church again. And I thought, ooh, that is not good. And what if the kids experience of the same thing? What about not knowing what church is going to be like when you show up? Like if we relate that to our experience for a moment, let's say you show up at church and you hear that there's no worship today because we just didn't have enough people to lead it. Or what if there's no one available to pray for you? And what if that kind of happened like weeks in a row, maybe even months in a row? Would you start to think about going to a different church? I could understand if you would. That's kind of what the kids' experience is like sometimes. Homies, I have asked nicely, and I have done the inspirational speech. Allow me to be a little bit more direct this time, because our kids' ministry is great, but it's under human-resourced. And for sure, for some, maybe even for most, but I'm not confident that I can say that we are giving all of our kids a positive experience of church. And we've seen from the research base what happens when we don't. We need more kids leaders. And maybe you're thinking, well, I've never done kids ministry before. Don't let that stop you. Callum McCabe had never done kids ministry before Holiday Club this week. Callum had never done kids ministry before Holiday Club this week. And they led a small group that was a mix of P1 to 3, lovable little blether boxes, and also like the shyer, more reserved, quieter kids. And like P1 to 3, that's not an easy shift. And they crushed. They crushed. Don't let I've never done this before stop you. In this church, we love our people. And we love the people that Jesus brings through our doors. And that includes the kids. Of course it does. They are Southsiders too. And one more person per week for each of Crash, Crescendo, and We Hope would make a night and day, as high as the heavens are above the earth, difference to the kids' experience of their church and also to their lifelong faithfulness to Jesus. Not to mention our current leaders' experience. I would like to see 12 more people sign up for our kids' teams. Because when we do, this is what will happen on the screen right now. With a positive experience of church, the likelihood of remaining faithful to Jesus throughout adult life jumps to 84%. If we thought that there was something that we could do that would increase a human's likelihood to remain faithful to Jesus throughout their whole life by 54%, we would not rest until we had done that. Yet this is our reality. This is what we can do. We can do that. And talk about fruit that lasts. Jesus says, I've appointed you to go and produce lasting fruit. Homies, the fruit of this investment in the kingdom of God that would only cost you one Sunday per month will last longer than your life. This is an investment worth making. It is time to do right by our youngest brothers and sisters by joining the kids' teams, and that includes getting your PBGs done nice and promptly, because kids' experience of church really, really counts. With that in mind, we have made the decision to just shift the transition point for Crescendo into We Hope, starting from this summer. Until now, a kid would join We Hope when they're about to start P1, but since P1 is so play-based now, even P2 is pretty play-based. And after consulting with some parents and some early years teachers from our community, we decided that it's going to be best for the kids to join We Hope when they're starting P2, so we don't place difficult or unrealistic expectations on them, since we care about their church experience. And not only that, but it'll raise the average age of Crescendo and of We Hope, and that's important since we want the critical mass of the group to be made up of those who are ready to hit it. It serves those kids best, and it also allows for younger kids to join a group that is chock full of role models. This week at Holiday Club, Rory and Caleb joined us in Big Brother mode. And that passed on through their small group. I need to tell you about Isaac Sorby. Isaac Sorby this week, he was running tech team. I'm sure he's done that before at We Hope. He led worship this week. He played the cajon. He led worship. And I saw him for a moment. Like, there was one time Lady Bex was telling the story, and I was sitting beside wee Fraser. And Isaac was sitting on the other side. Fraser's 5. And he was playing with his name sticker. He was like sticking it on his knee. He's 5. And Isaac was like, hey mate, listen. Sorry, that's an inappropriate response to emerging leadership, to emerging peer-to-peer leadership. Last year, he didn't want to join in with Holly Club. Last year, he stood at the back. This year, he's leading worship. This year, he's helping other kids to listen. Leadership came out of him this week, and I could not be more proud of him. That peer-to-peer leadership role model thing is huge. And if we can fill Crescendo and We Hope with that type of peer-to-peer leadership, it will be mega for those kids. Sorry, actually, I promised I would stay to the script and I didn't. Never mind. I recognize that we call people to a lot. And it felt like coming into this summer, for me included, there were a bunch of us who were kind of crawling over the line. Like, I get it. Yet there are enough of us here to lighten the load. Hit that practical faith hard. Use your spiritual gifts. Find your purpose. And everybody wins. Join a serving team. It's going to be good. I'm going to fly through the rest of these things. Due to the nature of our mostly part-time staff and volunteer leaders, communication can sometimes slow down, and staff strain means that sometimes stuff can get dropped. Our communication isn't awful, but it's not always great, and we don't want balls to drop because that is actually people getting cared for, and we want to take that so seriously. Ministry siloing is when our different teams don't know what each other are doing, and there's potential to stand on each other's toes and or balls getting dropped again. And we're working on things like making sure that, for example, pastoral care needs that come up in Bible read-through groups or in prayer ministry get passed on to the right people so people can get care quickly. We're making sure that our prayer ministry appointments happen in a timely way. And we're making sure that we don't have, like, for example, last Easter, where it was like, oops, surprised Rachel, your whole prayer team has joined the Easter choir. And I forgot to tell her. Rachel is a very organized person and would have been able to plan for that easily if I had have told her. Yikes, bro. My bad. Instead, we want teams that are working closely together and in sync, and that way we'll make sure that culture doesn't drift across our ministries. Now, I'm not super worried about this one so far. Like, all of our ministries feel really re-hopey. But I'm just watching out for how things might develop in the future, since we have a fair few ministries without formalized leadership right now. And without leaders, it is easier for things to just drift off track. Every ministry needs a leader. Every leader needs a team, and every team needs a leader. And this is a priority for us to make sure that we stay on mission, stay on doing what God has for us. I started off talking all attendancy, gross, but you'll have noticed at this point that none of this is about boosting attendance. We're not talking about a whole bunch of like invitational events that we can bring people to. Instead, all of this is about boosting care. It's always been the goal. It always will be the goal. When we are organizationally strong, people will be cared for well. And sure, when people are cared for well, they will stay and we will grow. But more importantly, when people are cared for well, when we are organizationally strong, they will grow. Care is always the goal. And it's time for a new era. Today is Riley's final day on staff at Rehope Southside, and there will be plenty gushing about Riley after the sermon. Rita is also finishing up at the end of the month. Change is afoot, but we have an opportunity here to restructure and rebuild for a new era. Back to Dr. Ed. He says, the structural shift at this stage is from leading people to leading leaders. Growth becomes dependent on leadership alignment and multiplication of leaders. And we're in the process of just shifting how our staff and volunteer leaders work together so that we can provide better structure, better consistency, better alignment, better communication. We can all run in the same direction and we can care for people well. On the screen, you can see how I'm thinking that structure is going to work. The roles that are highlighted in bold still need formalized leaders. So a big priority for us in this season is going to be identifying and developing leaders. And again, grateful for Brian for the Spiritual Gifts series and all the fruit that that's going to bear for us. There are a few ways that this leadership development thing is going to work out for us. We need to identify emerging leaders. We need to provide training and coaching opportunities for them. And we need to provide places where leaders can take their next steps. I would love the internship to be a huge deal for us this year. We currently have one person locked in, but I would love at least 4. Applications for our internship are still open. They'll be open until the end of the month. And it's golden. It's so good. It's so beautiful. And it has been reworked to be more focused on each location. Like your Sundays would be focused on serving in your chosen area here. You would be putting all of your time into Rehope Southside. And therefore, maybe your Sundays might look kind of similar if you're already a regular server. And it's also been reworked to make it just like a little less time demanding. So in addition to Sundays, there would also be 2 hours on a Wednesday night for teaching and training input. This is designed to work alongside a full-time job or full-time study. But there's more to the leadership development thing than that. Maybe you are a Leah Sellers type. Maybe you have done the internship, formerly known as Remain, before, and you would be up for mentoring an intern this year. Maybe you're like Tony Kardakis, and you have a wealth of ministry experience, and maybe you could coach an emerging leader. Maybe like Mark Wilson, you have a specialization, and you'd be willing to coach somebody like in your area of expertise, someone who'd like to grow in that area. If you think you could do that, I would love to hear from you. I already have a list of some people who have offered up their skills and their time to coach emerging leaders. If you would like to be added to that list, I would love to hear from you, and I thank you in advance. Question: do we have a mountain to climb, or what? My dudes, anything worth doing, and this is worth doing right. And that takes intentionality and effort, but it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. On a weekly basis, I'm going to be looking at our leadership meetings happening, our decisions being made quickly, our leaders being developed, is communication staying clear, our teams working together. That's not complicated, but it doesn't need to be complicated to be hard, at least not at the start. And that's most easily seen in the things that we need to stop doing immediately. And to be fair, most of these things are things that I need to stop doing immediately, but it will require a mindset shift from all of us. There's going to be different expectations that we have on each other, and there might be a little bit of friction at the start, but we'll work it out, and we'll figure it out, and it will be fine, it'll be cool. And I have confidence because we have done this before. We have regained momentum before. Plus, I have done this before. When I started working full-time as the kids pastor at Rehope Glasgow, what became Rehope West End, we were in a pretty similar position. We were seeing a lot of volunteer strain and burnout and all that stuff. And we worked through it. I'm saying we. It was mostly Ruth and Brian. Ruth is great at everything. But we worked through it, and it was great. Moved on to strength. But one big contrast between then and now. Here is a list on the screen of all the full-time staff members at Rehope Glasgow in 2016. And now on the screen is a list of all the full-time staff members at Rehope Southside in 2026. Oh, yikes. Okay, that's different. That's kind of different. We don't have a mountain to climb, but it's not like we don't have hurdles. But what if we could remove some hurdles? And what if we could remove one of the biggest ones? I am proposing a new goal for us. I'm proposing that we could be mortgage-free in 18 months or less. If we paid off our mortgage on this building It would change the game almost overnight. On the screen, you'll see where we're at. We are 7 years deep, and we have 90K left on our mortgage. And at our current repayment rate, we'll be done in June 2029. That's like roughly 3 years from now, which feels kind of close in comparison to 7 years, but also feels so far away. We can't wait until 2029 for this. Here's why, and here's why I think you should care about this. Homies, our days of crockpot feasts need to be over. There's too many of us for that now. And feasts and hospitality are pillars of Rehope. And I know for many of you, it's the feasts and the opportunity that they provide to meet people that really helped you get your feet and find your place at Rehope Southside. But we don't even have a kitchen. And after the Easter feast, Pat suggested that we would save up for a kitchen. Like, what if we started a kitchen fund? Yo, if you want to consider paying off our mortgage as a kitchen fund, I am so cool with that. I love that. We also have a blossoming youth ministry, and I'm so pleased with how it is going so far. But the ways we've been doing are only going to be able to take us so far. So we're moving towards an every week youth gathering starting in September. Youth team, love you. That is what is needed. And I'm so cool for the team to kick it, but really, I would love to be able to afford to pay a youth pastor. Do you know, every team needs a leader, and running a weekly, let's face it, vital ministry for this church, I would rather someone's dedication and commitment to pastoring like important dudes at our church, I would rather that they were like financially rewarded and thanked in a way that matches their commitment. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would like to pay someone. And if you want to think of paying off our mortgage as an investment in youth or an investment in staffing and other ministries, please be my guest. I am so cool with that. I love that. And then there's this building. Yo, it is beautiful and needy. I would love it if the toilets were a bit nicer. I would love it if they were accessible. I would love it if things looked a little bit fresher. I would love it if the roof in the crescendo room didn't leak in August on a morning when we're about to have holiday club in that room. I would love it if Leah Sellers didn't have to try and get my attention during pre-service prayer because the roof is leaking onto our stage piano. I would love that. If you want to consider paying off the mortgage as an investment in this beautiful building that God has given us, I'm so cool. We can't wait until 2029 for this. We have needs now. And the sooner we hit it, the sooner the game will change. And since I brought this stuff to our members back in June, we've made a dent. It's great. Thank you so much to those who've already contributed to this next era of Rehope Southside. Like, deeply, I really appreciate it. And for those members who haven't yet, or maybe you're hearing about it, you're not a member, you're hearing about it today, would you consider making a contribution to this? On the table up on the screen, you can see the kinds of gifts that would be helpful. That $2,500 per month is what Rehope Southside is already paying. And of course, that is due to you. That's due to our monthly givers. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. But this is a dig-in moment. And depending on your financial position, I wonder where you might see yourself on that table. Like, which shade of blue are you? Like, maybe you're thinking you're ready for a big generosity moment. Well, and we appreciate you. But maybe you're thinking you're one of those lighter blue guys. But you can see that those smaller monthly amounts still stack up. We don't sweat the little things around here. And I would love you to consider, and I would love you to commit to giving, like maybe on a monthly basis, what it is you would like to and what it is you can afford to give. And do that monthly so that we can keep going, keep chipping at this, and we can hit that next era sooner. We have had some larger format one-off gifts come in, and if that's how you prefer to do that, then please don't feel restricted by this table. It's just here to give a bit of a guide. I'm also going to be reaching out to some of our friends in America who have financially supported Rehope Southside in the past, but really this is our moment. And speaking personally for a moment, there have been a few occasions in my time leading this church that have meant so much to me when we have reached for something a bit bigger and achieved it. You know, things like our first feast back after lockdown, things like getting back in the Alpha game, running 2 Alphas in a year, things like that amazing Christmas concert that Ruth and her team put on last Christmas, and we ripped it on our own, and it was great. Those moments where we hit it and we stand on our own 2 feet, really, like, just make us feel like, hey, yo, we did it. There's sense of achievement and there's sense of community. And after those things, there is so much momentum to drive forward. I'd love those moments, and I'm hoping, I'm praying, and I would love this to be another one of those moments. The pastor has talked about attendance, and he has talked about money. Bleh, gross. Let me leave you with this, just so we can remember that the goal is always care. This week at Holiday Club, the kids named their crews, their little small groups, and we were exploring what it's like to build the kingdom of God. So most of the groups chose something Lego-y or buildery, and the P4 to 7 boys chose the name for themselves, the Master Builders. And I'm sure they were thinking of the Lego movie, but I've spoken about God's preparation for this moment, but this little thing feels, I mean, maybe just more like a little divine Easter egg for me. Because Master Builders, do you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if that reminds you of anyone or of anything. I'm always trying to follow in Ruth's footsteps up in here. I want to be a master builder. I want to be a skillful master builder. But I also look at the now and the future that those kids represent. I want Daniel and Isaac and Ethan, Rory and Caleb, who were there in Big Brother mode, to aplomb, by the way. I want them to be master builders. And of course, all the other kids and teenagers, all of the adults, we can masterfully, skillfully build something beautiful here by providing a positive experience of church for all ages to ensure good care for people, by developing leaders, by working together, by running in the same direction, in the now and in the future, producing fruit that is going to outlast us. Each little group made up this like a chant. Every time they heard their group's name, they had to chant their little chant. And the master builders chose, build up one another, build up one another. And that's it, innit? Like, could this divine Easter egg get any better for me? We want to be master builders. We want to build each other up. This is what this is all about. All the building that has been done so far, all that will be done in the future, is all with the goal to build up one another now as we move into this next era, and then into the future, producing fruit that is going to outlast us. God has been good to us so far, and of course we trust him to be good to us in the future. I've got a little challenge for you this week. Your challenge is to build up one another. And I would love it if you would consider making a contribution to paying off Rehope Southside's mortgage so we can hit this next era hard. If you go to rehope.co.uk/Southside, and then you'll scroll down, you'll see a little section called Mortgage Fund. And there's a button there that can take you to the place where you can contribute a gift. You can type your amount. You can choose the frequency of your gift. And if you are a UK taxpayer, please could you remember to tick that little gift aid box? That goes a long way too. We could probably actually make the UK government our biggest contributor to paying off our mortgage. And I'm going to resist making a "it's about time we got something from London" joke, because Jamie wouldn't approve. Instead, I'm going to pray. God, you've been so good to us. And we are grateful for the ways that you've been working in the big picture. We are grateful for the ways that you've been working in the little details. We are grateful for the ways that you've been working in the lives of the people of this church, people who have been part of this church and who have moved on, people who will be part of this church in the future. We are so thankful. God, I want to praise you for Ruth and the job that she did so well. And I thank you that she's still contributing to this location of this church so wonderfully. Thank you for Jamie, same deal. We praise you and we thank you. And God, for all our leaders and for all our volunteers, God, I bless them with energy and with joy and with drive to serve you and build your kingdom well. And God, we look to the future and we look to this next era. Lord, will you provide us with the staff members that we need so we can hit this hard? Will you provide us with this financial stability by helping us pay off our mortgage? Will you provide for us, Lord, so that we can care for each other well? We are confident in you because we know what kind of God you are and we know what kind of people you call us to be. You are a loving God. You are a caring, compassionate God, and we just want to be like you. Help us to be more like you. Help us to care for each other well, all ages. Help us to care for the people who come in these doors, all ages, so well. We look to you for all of our motivation, all of our joy, all of our drive. Provide for us, Lord. Amen.
Fab.